On record? Okay. All right, so I'd like to call this regular meeting of the City Council and WPCA to order. For the record, today is Monday, November 20th, 2023. We are participating, we have participation via in person. I don't see anybody on the Zoom. So for the record, participating in person, our council member Waldron, Councilwoman Hona, Councilman Manicia, Councilwoman Ruette, and Councilman Oliver. With that said, let me, before we jump into the agenda, ask if we could kindly stand and pledge the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah, the chair with that wheel. Okay, so first item on the agenda this evening is a public comment. I will entertain a motion to open the meeting to the public in accordance with Section 4, subsection E of the City Council and WPCA meeting rules of procedure.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Waldron.
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Hona. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? During this public portion, I know that there are a number of people here that do wish to address the council. I would just remind everybody that there is a 3-minute limit for public comment. I know that there are a number of people here that wish to address the council regarding a homeless winter sheltering opportunity. And before everybody takes the microphone to share their concerns or their support or their suggestions, I would just like to put on the record that as of this afternoon, I had a meeting with our city planner, and that the location that has been identified and proposed for a winter sheltering does require a public process for approval through the Planning and Zoning Commission. There will be an application for a special exception for the use of the property. There will be a public hearing, and then the commission makes a determination as to whether or not that is the appropriate location and appropriate use. So if anybody is concerned that they haven't had a chance to participate in some public forum, I do want to assure you that there is a public forum. It is on the horizon, and all that information will be pushed out. So with that said, and we do have an opportunity to offer comment, anybody wishing to speak can come to this podium and just announce your name and take your 3 minutes. So anybody from the public wishing to address the council? Is there? Yes.
Thank you to everybody here willing to listen to the public. My name is Nicole Milo. Excuse me. I am very grateful that this is going to go to a public hearing. And I would like to start by saying several things coming from not only a parent, but somebody who has spent 7 years volunteering with the homeless population at Joseph's House. And also from a position as a founder and executive director of a nonprofit whose mission is to solve housing. From speaking from that place, I would just like to say the disabled and autism population, intellectually disabled, when you are a nonprofit that seeks any type of shelter, housing, or what I would call congregate care, there is a litany of compliance and regulations that we have to hold to, and as it should be. My concern is when grant monies are available, it makes our community susceptible when there is not enough regulations and parameters, because many, it is to my knowledge in the conversations I have had with ministers and pastors in the community, that they have all declined having this low barrier housing shelter. Why? They've declined it based on ethics because there is no screening process. You can have drug use. You can have no criminal background checks. These are serious issues in close proximity to a school and children. And I chose to have my children go to St. John Paul the Great, which is directly adjacent to this property, actually butts right up against it, because the leadership there is doing their due diligence in certifying even volunteers to try to protect our children. They've done a great job, but we have after hours, late night events, sporting events. So there's some real serious concerns. As an executive director of a nonprofit, I'm disappointed in the lack of bringing together the community in the conversations that have already been had. Father Emmanuel and Principal Edward Goad should have been included, should have been brought to those table talks. It questions the entire process when you don't operate with those types of ethics in your community. And that's really the point I wanted to make is I question why. Why would a church that has biblical foundation allow homeless? You want to serve people of all different needs. I understand that. But why, when there's no screening process, there's no way to protect the people in your congregation and the children that are close by? I think it needs to be looked into that there are monies available, which question the ethics of this whole process. So I think I'm very glad that planning and zoning is going to look at it, because law-abiding citizens, current holding citizens, cannot go on school grounds with a weapon or a firearm. But you're going to house criminals. And hey, I am not judging people that are struggling, but I'm telling you a fact that this population in a low barrier homeless shelter are the ones that none of the other shelters would take. And that's serious. So I'm very glad. And thank you for hearing the people's concerns and moving this to planning and zoning.
Absolutely. So, and the podium is open, and I just want to add further, especially for the council members. This is not a city function. This is not a city shelter opportunity. Winter sheltering in the city of Torrington has always been the function of a core group of very caring social care providers. For years, it was Overflow Shelter. There were some very dedicated practitioners and volunteers. Nothing has changed. This is still a decision that gets made by these practitioners and social care providers. The difference, as you just heard, is when state funding becomes available, it does change the dynamic about how homeless are placed within these shelters. So just for your information, I did share with Father Emmanuel that while this board certainly had no jurisdiction over the selection of a site or the operations or the acceptance of the funding, that I did not want to prohibit the voice of the people to be heard. And it's, as I said, it's actually a zoning commission matter. So if you may.
Thank you. So my name is John Simoncelli. I'm the executive director of Greenwoods Counseling, a nonprofit, local nonprofit that serves Litchfield County. And so I thought I'd just spend a little time, because my role here has really been to just organize these efforts and be a point of contact for people who are interested in helping. That includes the agencies that are involved. And I thought it would just spend my 3 minutes explaining how this would actually operate and what the money from the state is actually used for, right? So everybody can be on the same page. So this is not a permanent shelter. It is not a 24/7 shelter. This is a shelter that would run in the evenings. It is just for the overnight. So it would open up at 8:30 in the evening and it would close at 7 o'clock in the morning. It really is designed just to keep people alive. It is professionally run. It will be run by the YMCA. They have experience in housing, as you know, and they ran it professionally last year. They're going to run it professionally again this year. That is what the money goes towards. It is not very much money. Our whole region gets about $250,000 to run this shelter for 5.5 months. That goes all to staffing and support and food, right? So it is not a lot of money. This is not a money grab. It's barely enough to actually do this. And the YMCA has been gracious enough to take that on. Between 5 o'clock and 8:30 in the evening, because it gets very cold, right? At 4:30 right now, it gets very cold. The community kitchen, which is on the same road, stone's throw away, will open at 5 o'clock for these folks. They will go there. YMCA staff will be there. In addition to YMCA staff, we will have other staff from neighboring agencies, my agency, McCall Center, Apex. There's a variety of agencies in the community that have outreach staff that will be there to help during those hours. So we're going to have lots of staff, lots of community support. When folks are discharged from at 7 o'clock in the morning when they leave, they will be directed to the community kitchen, which is agreed to open up at 7 o'clock in the morning. They will serve a meal at 8 o'clock. And then these folks will go to other places that are warm, mostly probably the gathering place, which is on Prospect Street. So again, that is going away from the school. It is not going towards the school. It's going away towards the community kitchen. Okay. And there will be staff members to help direct those folks that way. I want to also just clarify the population that's served. So the majority of these folks do not have mental health concerns. Actually, 20% of the people who participated last year were working. So they were working, but they were homeless. So they would actually drive to the shelter, they would sleep, they'd get up and they'd go to work, right? Only about 9% last year were homeless because of chronic mental health issues. Another thing, I'm a therapist, right? I've been working in mental health for 20 years. It's important to remember that people who struggle with mental health issues, that 9%, are much more likely to be the victims of violence than the perpetrators of violence. So I want to acknowledge to everyone in the room, to all of you, that people who struggle with mental health issues, that can be scary. It can be foreign to see that on our streets. But 9 times out of 10, does not lead to violence. So I want to acknowledge that, yes, when a kid sees that, when an adult sees that, it can be scary, foreign, not know what to do, but it does not lead to violence, okay? When it comes to the operation of the shelter, I think that the Y are the experts. They do not allow drug use in the shelter. That is not true. Weapons are not allowed in the shelter. That is not true. The low barrier aspect is that if someone shows up and they are under the influence, they will be allowed in, okay? They will not be allowed to do drugs while there, okay? So I want to make that very clear. This is not a free-for-all, and it is observed the entire time. There are 3 staff members observing this the entire time. The last thing I'll say is that in terms of how this all came about, there has been a committee working on this, a committee that is open to the public, to all that would like to participate, for 6 months. We have not been able to find a location for this until 3 weeks ago. And 3 weeks ago, Northwest Hills Community Church graciously agreed to house these individuals to take on this effort. They asked good questions. They asked many of the same questions you all are asking tonight. We were able to answer all of them and provide all of these supports, right? So my hope is that once people hear about all the support that we have to offer, about how it's professionally run by the YMCA that has experience in this area, that it will help to alleviate those anxieties and those fears. Also, know that we are here to help. We're not going to set this up and walk away. All of your local agencies are here to help with this effort, to help people stay alive through the winter months. And if this effort is rejected, these folks will not have a place to go. And it's getting cold out, right? And that's simply the reality, is that if this gets rejected, they simply won't have a place to go. The state has said, here's some money, please do what you can with it. And that's what we're trying to do. If we didn't involve folks proactively, We apologize for that, but this is an all volunteer effort. Everyone who's involved in the committee is doing this on top of their regular job responsibilities. There's no money that comes in for this until day one of the shelter starting. And all of that's going to go to the YMCA and the community kitchen. Okay. So we probably could have done things better. Again, we just secured this location 3 weeks ago, and it's an all volunteer effort. So if we didn't reach out the way we should have, if communication didn't happen the way we would have liked it to, we apologize for that. But it has been thought out, it has been thought through, and there will be a lot of support to make sure this is done safely. And the community is doing what it can for those who are in most need. Okay. Anyone can reach out to me. Again, my name is John Simon-Silly from Greenwoods. Reach out to me at any time if you have questions. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Good evening, Gary Ucalito. I'm a resident of Torrington. I'm here as a resident. I'm also on the Board of Education. I'm not representing the board, but I do have concerns about this, but the mayor, I think, has addressed what needs to be addressed for most of it. I think that I'm going to address Mr. Simon-Silly. Torrington is not a, can you hear me? I don't see that there is any concern or consideration of anywhere else in the town, because I don't know if you went to Litchfield, Goshen, Lakeville, Canaan, or anywhere else to find an overflow facility. You can't, 9 out of 10 don't pose a problem, but it's the 1 out of 10 that becomes a concern. These are children. There's 700 children on both sides of the street. Yes, they can't do drugs inside, but I've been down to the Co-Park finding needles. I can tell you where they go when they get out because I work downtown. They go from the shelter to the library, to the back of the library where people are dumped off every day from Litchfield, up to 38 people. There have been, I think, stabbings. There have been fights. There have been assaults. There have been overdoses, all in the back of the library. The library staff on a daily basis has to deal with what comes out of the homeless shelters. There are problems. I'm not condemning the homeless. I'm not condemning the addicts because I have them on my family, both alcoholics and drug addicts. But it is an improper place, in my opinion. And maybe that will rest on the city in the long term to come up with a, I don't know if it's zoning or come up with a plan from a social service point, the plan where we start to share this responsibility as Torringtonians with the rest of the county. I don't know if Mr. Simon-Silly lives in Torrington or anybody from the Y that's representing the board, but if you don't live in Torrington, you're not experiencing what's happening with the social services being done downtown. We are a community that takes on the entire burden of Litchfield County. Step up, other towns. Mr. Simon-Silly, do you have children in the school system in Torrington, or is it out of town?
I realize
I know, so-
it's attempting, but if you could just correct
Correct.
your comments. to the
If you
board.
don't, then you wouldn't understand it. You would never allow this to be sat next to your child's school, whether Litchfield, Goshen, anywhere else. The other communities need to step up and help Torrington with these situations. It's a burden we should not have to bear. And the amount of money we spend on police visits alone is something we can't afford anymore. So maybe there's another place in Torrington. I would suggest maybe the Armory, maybe the Civic Center. I don't know. And I know it's not the city's responsibility, but to throw this at the community without any advance notice, and I doubt that the mayor knew, I know lots of people didn't know about this, was the wrong way to go. And maybe you didn't do it because you knew what the response would be. So thankfully it's going to go to planning and zoning. Well, it will be heard. And maybe the planning and zoning commission can work with the town and, the townspeople, people that run the city, to come up with a plan to prepare for these things, or at least know how to expect them down the road and better direct the resources that we're getting from Hartford to the surrounding communities, because I'm sure Litchfield would love one of these homeless shelters. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ucalito.
Good evening. My name is Roberta Raffa. Currently the security director for St. John Paul the Great Parish. And also I'm a retired DEA agent, 30 years in law enforcement. So my question is to John, do you have a metal detector at the place? This new place?
And if I may, I'm sorry, just because this is a council meeting and it's public comment to the council, I would ask if the questions, we want those questions posed.
Okay.
Mr. Simon-Silly and the other care providers are here to hear those questions and a follow-up meeting can be arranged to get answers.
My issue is that there's no way to know if somebody's carrying drugs unless you pat them down, even check their shoes. There's no way to know that someone's carrying a knife or a weapon unless you pat them down or put them through a metal detector. I know there is a need for a homeless shelter in Connecticut and across the country, especially with the migrant crisis. From January 2022 to January 2023, homelessness rose by 3%. So we understand that there's a need. However, there should be no homeless shelter near a school. This school has children, just children from kindergarten to 8th grade. They have a large parking lot where they play outside. There is no way to tell if drugs or alcohol, maybe empty bottles, paraphernalia for drugs, whatever, might be left and kicked around on the playground. What I'm worried as a retired DEA agent is fentanyl. Fentanyl is a very, very potent drug. You read about it and see everywhere in any of the cities that Chicago, New York, any of the other, San Francisco, especially Chicago, kids are dying from fentanyl. And it doesn't mean they're finding a large amount of it. I have a picture to show you. This is the difference between fentanyl and heroin. You need take a couple of grains of sugar. That's the size of fentanyl that'll kill you. And then you have grams in heroin. You would need a couple of grams in heroin to kill you. It's very potent, and they're finding it on playgrounds all around the place. So what do drug dealers do? They also want to entice children. So they make it in tablet form, rainbow colors for the kids. I'm not saying that anybody from there is a drug dealer or even a drug user. I'm saying the potential is possible. I also looked up the other shelters in Connecticut. There was 112 pages of shelters in Connecticut, but that would be in our whole state. I couldn't print them all. We also have 146 other shelters in Torrington area, Torrington, Litchfield, and Winstead. So in conclusion, St. John Paul the Great Parish is a very loving and open community. The school is a very successful school. We do not want children to witness possibly fights, arguments, bottles being kicked around, possibly weapons left, or anything that would damage and emotionally damage any of these children. So again, I conclude by saying the shelter is a good idea, but not near any school in the state of Connecticut. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My name is Conrad Sinkowitz. I've been a coordinator of Operation Overflow for a number of years. Operation Overflow was active for about 16 years until COVID hit. These are human beings that we're working with. They are looking for sleep. They want a night's sleep. Yes, some of them are drug users. Some of them are alcoholics. They are human beings. We should be led by love and not fueled by fear. With Operation Overflow, it's a community effort. We have the police helping us out. We have the mental health wellness van helping us out. We have churches helping us out. It's a community effort, a community reaching out and supporting. Police have supported them, but we have not had major problems that so many people are imagining. And again, fueled by fear. A church is willing to do this. Churches have been doing this in Torrington. Congregational Church has helped us out. First United Methodist Church has helped us out. Trinity Church has helped us out. These people have been up and down the street, up and down Prospect Street, up and down Main Street. With a shelter there, it won't make any more of a difference. These people are here. If you don't want your children to see the homeless, get them out of Torrington, because the homeless are here. The homeless are here. The homeless are here, We need to work with them, be loving, be guided by love, and reach out and help. And be, I thank
Thank
you for
Yes,
giving me the time. Thank you.
absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Sinkwitz.
Thank you so much for giving us the time to address this issue, just even on a premature basis. I understand that there will be more to come at planning and zoning, but we just wanted to get the best possible information out about how planful this process has been, how sensitive, and it's not just St. Paul the Great School. There's Vogel Wetmore School in the neighborhood as well. And Father Emmanuel has been in the community since August of 2018, which was around the time, the last few years of the old Operation Overflow, the original one that Conrad referred to. For 16 years, every single year, the Northwest Hills Community Church was part of that effort. Every single year, including Trinity Church, including the other church partners that Conrad mentioned. We have done the best that we can. By the way, I forgot to identify myself. Very sorry. I'm Julie Scharnberg. I'm the Vice President of Community Engagement for the Northwest Connecticut Community Foundation. We have tried to plug every single moment of time available from, we have looked at the school hours, we have looked at the shelter operations. The soup kitchen has been an amazing partner in providing extra hours. The service providers have been amazing in providing extra hours in order to have as much coverage as possible. The police chief is an incredible partner. The first responders, the fire department, the mayor's office has been present in all these discussions since COVID, when we have had to find other places to do this. The mayor's office has been a wonderful partner in helping us find buildings to do this. St. Mary's School was within a reasonable walking distance of all these schools. Everybody had to walk right down the street to get to the soup kitchen, to get to the gathering place. The end goal of anybody in that shelter, there are two. One, to stay alive. It's really cold. They have to be indoors. Number two, it's to get a housing plan. They don't have to, it is not necessary that everyone be there for the entire 5 months that this is open. If a housing plan can be put together for somebody in 2 days or 2 weeks or 2 months, that is the end goal. That is what all of these service providers work toward. They work with meeting people, understanding what their barriers are, understanding what their housing barriers may be. There are people right now who are on what's called the by name list. And I'll back up for a minute. Fish has 35 shelter beds. 5 of those are funded by the Veterans Administration exclusively for veterans. Start with 35. The Y in Winstead has 16. So we have 41 shelter beds in our region. On the by name list right now, these are all the people that have been through an assessment who are not in shelter, but they're waiting for a shelter bed. We have over 100 who are waiting to get into the shelter right now. So we can fill the shelter 2.5 times with people who are already on a waiting list. And that is not the people who are outside without having been assessed and who are still unhoused, or those who become unhoused this week, tonight, tomorrow, next week. So there is a big waiting list to do this. And we just wanted to assure you that there has been a long history of the operation of this overflow shelter. It is an emergency response to the fact that there is no room at the existing shelters. It's just the simple fact. And we are so appreciative of the fact that I know that the mayor's office has, we've talked about the idea of having some place to go, of having a place for permanent emergency shelter so that when somebody finds themselves unhoused through any circumstance that hits people, there's a place to go. And we really have to work toward this, because for 3 years now, we have all been through this circus of trying to find a building, trying to put it together, trying to find the money. And we understand that we need to solve this permanently. We're working toward that. And we thank you so much. And we want to thank especially the mayor's office for all of her support for all of this. Really, it's it's been great. She's been there as we have picked up and put down, as buildings have been presented, as buildings have been like, yep, we're all good. We got this. And then it's like, yeah, no, we're not going to do it. It has been a roller coaster and right up to the last minute. And we are so grateful to all the efforts of Northwest Hills Community Church and the planning committee to get us to where we are today. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Christina Bishop. I'm a lifelong resident of Torrington, and I am also a street outreach worker for the Center of Human Development. I'm one of the few people in this room that go to those homeless encampments. I'm one of the few people in this room that have to tell people, we don't have a shelter space for you. So it's easy to sit here in this room and say, we don't want them, because you're not the one who has to tell people, all I can do is give you a sleeping bag because there's no space. Every single shelter in the state of Connecticut is full. Currently in Litchfield County, there are 12 families that are not sheltered. That means they're living in a tent, they're living in their car with their children. There are 23 children in the northwest corner that are not sheltered tonight. Tonight, they are living in their car. If we do not have this overflow for these people, these families in Litchfield County, they will remain unsheltered. We're not just saying, oh, open up this space for our sheltered individuals. This affects our families as well. I have been here my whole entire life. I'm very proud to be from the northwest corner. And I don't disagree that this is not just a Torrington, Connecticut problem. This is a Litchfield County issue. I do believe that we need to have more committees, because that's what we need, another meeting, but more committees. So throughout the county, so mayors from the county are working together with our mayor here. That's what a community is. We are the northwest corner. And these things don't work if we all don't work together. Now, that being said, I also have volunteered my time 2 nights a week to sit with our people from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Trinity Church to help them get whatever they need. Some people need, there's a lot of paperwork involved in housing people, because not only am I going to the encampments to locate them, to check on them, to work with them, I case manage 15 people at one time to get them hooked up with housing vouchers. I have people that are unsheltered right now in Torrington, Connecticut that have been matched with a housing voucher. This will be their second time going to overflow because I can't find a landlord that will accept their housing voucher. I know it's my time,
I'm sorry.
but so that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Pete Kapatancic, and I live here in Torrington, and my son goes to St. John Paul the Great Academy. I heard about this situation and was just moved to come speak to you all tonight. I really don't agree with this not in my backyard attitude. These people deserve to be treated with dignity, and they already live in our backyards and our front yards. Every day when I'm driving my kid to school, I see them on the streets. They're already shelters with a stone throw away, and they haven't been a problem. And I don't anticipate this shelter that is needed to be a problem either. Just because somebody is unhoused doesn't make them dangerous. Just because somebody has maybe some mental health struggles, that doesn't make them dangerous. Just because somebody has a substance use disorder doesn't make them dangerous. I just couldn't in good conscience, not come speak to you all tonight. And I think any delay in opening this shelter would be cruel and inhumane. So I'm asking that, we prioritize this and try and get this moving as soon as possible so these people have a place to sleep at night. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Michael Burgos. I'm the pastor at Northwest Hills Community Church. Married. I have 9 children who live in this town. I'm a taxpayer. Let me just say, it's going to be very difficult for me to address the mischaracterizations and the invective that's been thrown around, the fear mongering, but I'll try my best. The only reason why Northwest Hills Community Church has sought to host this homeless shelter is because none of you would. Not one business, not the city of Torrington, not another church, not the Roman Catholic Church, not those who send their kid to the Catholic Academy. No one. We were the last option. And as Christians who believe in biblical ethics, and ma'am, we believe them, we have an obligation to care for people. And when it comes down to being inconvenienced, having most of our building taking over for most of the winter, or seeing people stay out in the cold and be exposed, we won't let that happen. We'll care for them in Jesus' name. Let me just mention also that there's been some speculation about, why not in this town? Why not in that town? Most homeless people don't have an ability to go from town to town. That was attempted last year, and it was very difficult and failed. Additionally, let me just say that Northwest Hills Community Church does not stand to make a dime from this homeless shelter. The only thing that we will receive is the differential in cost for our heating and our electricity. Other than that, we're not doing this for money. Our church is flourishing. It's one of the largest churches in the area, and it's filled with children. If we didn't think that we could keep our own children safe, of which there are many, we would never host a homeless shelter. We would never permit that to happen. But the way some of you people talk about the homeless, it's like they're aliens, like an ever-present danger. Now, I don't think you understand. These are mostly normal people. Some of them certainly have addiction problems. Some of them have other problems, certainly. But these are people you see all the time in this city. And so what are we going to tell them? We're going to ignore them? We're going to pretend like they don't exist? I don't think so. Rather, having a professional shelter, professionally maintained, safeguards in place, a schedule that does not interfere with our programs and our children, and that does not permit loitering and other things for concern of Vogel Wetmore and the Catholic school, I think is the wisest course of action. Thanks very much.
Hi, my name is Noel De Leon. I do work for McCall Behavioral Health Network, but I wanted to speak on behalf of as a community member of Torrington. I lived here for 20 years. I raised my 2 kids in this town. I love this town dearly and truly. Sadly and embarrassingly, I will admit that up until a few years ago, until I started waking up and being a real grown adult, I would have said the same thing. Not in my town, not those people, not here. A few years ago, I got diagnosed with cancer. It was a real wake-up moment for myself. And I started growing as a person. And then I was blessed to be allowed to work with McCall Behavioral Health and work with these people every day and talk to them every day, be alongside them every day. And they're our brothers and sisters. They're just like us. They deserve our compassion. They deserve love. They don't deserve to freeze outside because it makes someone uncomfortable to see them. I think it's embarrassing, frankly, that we're even having this discussion. I can understand the discussion about how much money should we budget. But the fact that we're even talking about where, somewhere, anywhere, as long as we find a place, that's what matters. And to address the concerns, I was at the overflow last year with these folks and some of their kids. All right, there was no violence. There was a metal detector to check. People were patted down. And yes, people do have substance use that they're struggling with, but it wasn't there. It wasn't around the premises. It was something that they do ashamed for the most part, hiding from the world because they don't want the world to see it. And I think as a member of Torrington, we should be proud that where people come, We should be proud that we're the ones that take care for the people. And we shouldn't just look for another town to do it. They don't want to do it, we'll do it. That's fine. This is a human issue. And if we're all concerned about what if, take a look at San Francisco. All right. There's a jewel of a city where the people ignored the problem. They gave half-hearted efforts, and now the city is a ghost town. I don't want that for Torrington. We should support each other, look out for each other. Never forget that we're all human. We all deserve love. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, Mayor Carbone and City Council. My name is Michael Ambrose. My family and I moved to Torrington in 1990. Hard to believe it's been that long. When I became the pastor of the Calvary Baptist Church. And in 2015, our church merged with another church. And so I became one of the pastors at Northwest Hills Community Church, where I continue to serve. From 1990 to 2005, my family and I lived in the parsonage at 42 Church Street, right next to the church, 2 doors down from St. Francis School. Of course, I've worked at the church for 33 years, so I know the neighborhood well, and I know the people well. I would just mention that looking at what the weather channel on my phone, it's 30 degrees right now, and it's forecast to go down to 21 tonight. When we were approached as a church 3 weeks ago, and we were shocked, first of all, that at that point there was nothing in place, and it was already about as cold then as it is right now. As Pastor Burgos has said, this is something that's a big take. It's taking on a lot for us as a church to give away half of our building or more for 5 months. And we brought it to our own congregation, people just like everyone here who live in this community, and we asked for their input. I was especially touched when one of our members, I wouldn't have known this about her, shared how when she was a child, she and her family became homeless and lived in her car. You just don't know. You just don't know what might happen to you one day or to one of your children or grandchildren. Of course, we're concerned about the safety of children. We have a lot a lot of kids in our church, about 40 maybe under the age of 18. 2 of them are my grandsons, ages I have to think about this, 13 and 11. So when we brought this to our congregation, safety was clearly the #1 concern that was expressed to us, and that we as the leaders of the church already had. And we've sought to address those issues as we've had conversations with John Simoncelli. So we talked about the hours, because we have children's programming 2 nights a week at the church that goes till 8 o'clock, which is one of the reasons why this won't start until 8:30. And we were assured that people would come, that they would be leaving the building at 7.
I'm sorry. I do apologize.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people that want to
Sure.
speak, and you've had your 3 minutes.
All right, thank
I
you.
do have to ask you to wrap that up so other people
Sure,
have a
yeah,
chance.
so I'll just finish by saying, if there's another way to do this, we would be relieved. But if this delays into mid-December and January, I'm really concerned about what's going to happen to people and our responsibility as a community for those people. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Donna Georgescu, Torrington resident. First, I want to say Torrington's misrepresented, I think. I think it's one of the most generous communities. When you think of coat drives, food drives, sock drives, Joseph House, Gathering Place Fish, McCall's, Primetime, Friendly Hands Food Bank, I think when somebody mischaracterizes Torrington as looking at people as though they're an alien, is not credible. I also want to say St. Peter Hall was used as a shelter. So the Catholic community did hold up. I want to just say we're a very giving, generous group of people. In this case, a homeless center near 2 schools with 600 children involved. We must watch out and care for the most vulnerable. And I think young children who can't care for themselves are the most vulnerable. We also, when the gentleman said there's a 9 out of 10, everything runs smoothly. Well, some of the star homes in Connecticut have shown that's not the case. All you need is 1 out of 10, providing a very huge liability for Torrington should anything occur.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Greg Briscoe. I'm CEO of the YMCA. I've been in this community for 20 years. As mentioned earlier, we have a 16-bed homeless shelter in Winstead. We've got 15 low-income housing apartments in Winstead, and we have 42 single occupancy, low-income apartments in Torrington. So in my 20 years here, I've seen thousands of different people come and live in Torrington. And I can't count more than less than a handful of incidents of violence or weapons that have occurred during that 20-year time. These folks want a place to sleep. They want a warm place to be. Some facts. Last year, we were asked to run the homeless shelter in Winstead. And thus, we also volunteered to bus the folks back and forth, which was problematic, but we did it because it was necessary. So we had 111 different adults spend the night there, 5 minors belonging to 5 families. 30% were there because of income issues. 20%, as John mentioned, they worked. Okay, these folks are not a problem to the community. Sure, there are a few people in the evening that have a little too much to drink, and we have a space, and we have a space in this plan to put them in a space where they're not going to hurt anybody, and they're going to be just fine. Last year we had, of 135 days of service, we had 39 911 calls. 27 of them were medical reasons. So this is not this free for all. And I would never put my staff in a situation where they would be at risk of being in violence. So we look at this professionally. We're in the people business, working with folks that aren't in the best spot, and we're here to support. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Greg.
Hi, everybody. My name is Caitlin Hall. I have 2 children that go to St. John Paul, a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old. By the grace of God, I am not homeless. My children are not homeless. That's one of the teachings of Jesus, is to take care of those among us who have less. I myself am not scared for my children to know about homelessness or to see homelessness. That is my job as a parent, to teach them that this is very real and that there are people in the community, in our community. It's not something that's far away or in other cities. It's right here in our community, to teach them about taking care of other people. That's what Jesus would want us to do. My concern is the fact that we found out about this Saturday night. We received an email Saturday night at like 9 o'clock. It would have been very nice to know about this ahead of time, to maybe have a meet and greet with, the people who are going to be handling the shelter, to address the questions that we as parents might have. It's sad, but these are the times that we live in now. I'm a young parent. I didn't have to go through, school issues. I'm lucky. But right now, unfortunately, that's not something that parents have the luxury of doing, is not worrying about their children. And I understand that, there's people that are going to be professional and that it's going to be taken care of. And there are the best laid plans and the best of intentions, but things are safe until they're not. And I mean, that's my concern, is that something can happen. And that's all I'm saying. I'm not pro or against. I'm just saying it would have been nice to know this ahead of time instead of just being blindsided by it. And I would love to schedule another meeting so that we can actually address the concerns and questions that we have. And that's it.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to address the board. I just have a couple of questions, I guess. First of all, we understand that it's going to be professionally monitored and such. Who does the vetting on these folks that are going to be housed there? Is there a vetting process? Is someone going to ensure that there are no drugs or weapons available? You know, I get people need to have homes, and they need to have housing. And perhaps this area is the right area for them. However, having spent my entire life in Torrington and having spent years at St. Francis School, both my parents, myself, and my daughter, it's a safe place. It's a place where folks go and they feel safe and they feel secure. Father Emmanuel's done a hell of a job making sure the school stays like that. This is the only parochial school in Litchfield County. And if somebody is trying to influence people not to attend that school, I feel that's wrong. And I think perhaps folks say that they're going to be escorted, they're going to be leaving the premises early in the morning. Who's going to ensure that happens? Who's going to escort those people to wherever they go then? You know, it's a sad state of affairs when we have this homeless problem, but it's also a sad state of affair when it will impact perhaps recruitment for the school, and it may impact folks staying in the school. So I guess my question is, who does the vetting and who ensures that the folks that are at this shelter are the folks that should be there? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm John Noki. I have Howard's Bookstore downtown, and I've been downtown for 10 years on street level. And hey, guess what? These guys are my friends, Wode and Rick. And, you know, Rick and I talk about James Joyce just about every day. And he was a lawyer once,
yeah,
and shortlisted at Columbia University. And wouldn't you know it, our homeless in the northwest corner are above average. And but I have been threatened. I've been threatened downtown one time, but not by a homeless person. These guys are weak on the most part. They're weakened and they're sensitive because nobody wants them. They come in and they look at me. The first thing they want to know is, am I welcome? Can I be here a minute? Have a normal conversation. Milo just lost his place. He was working on a farm out in Kent and came here. And I agree with whoever said we ought to be proud of it. That Torrington's the greatest city I've ever been a part of. I've lived in New York and Boston, Brooklyn. We take care of our folks. We try hard. Now, we may not always win out, but we try hard. And that counts for a lot in the Christian community. And but the solution is actually to have a shelter so that folks can get to know the folks. You do have to have street smarts. And so within 2 or 3 minutes, you can generally tell if someone is a danger. And it's very, very rare that I pick up on that. But what you actually want is to know them on a personal basis, which I think is what the church is trying to do. And I give them all the credit in the world. But secondarily, as a community, our communication is not that good. In other words, if someone does come in and I go, wow, this guy, he might be trouble. There ought to be sort of a network where we can go, hey, you know, and the communication is key, even if no matter where the shelter is with this problem. But you know, Rick is 69 years old. He got pneumonia last year. I don't think he'll make it through the winter without a shelter. And who gives a shit? Really? Really?
you know, and, but we as a people in the Great Depression, my grandmother always took care of poor people. She took care of Okies. And she always said, don't you have a heart? And poor people take care of poor people, actually. And but we as a people decided that we would have a safety net, that we would value basic humanity. And I get it. Some of these guys are jerks. I'm not saying I like all of them because Artie drives me nuts. He really does. And but we as a people decided we'd have a safety net. And I think Lisa Hageman did more than her share. She was just one of those superhuman people, and we don't have her anymore. We need her back.
I'm sorry.
Right now, we just
I
need
do
her back.
apologize. I have 3 minutes and I do have to call it here.
But if we all work together and share the risk, we are safe.
Thank you, Mr. Nawaki.
Hello, my name is Kristen Lamesa Hamzy. So I just want to say first that I do believe that a lot of people are thinking that St. John Paul the Great Academy and the parish is totally against everything. And we are not. We stand for a lot, and we do a lot of fundraising, and we do a lot of stuff to help our community. One, I do think that a lot of this should be some of the town's responsibility. There have been homeless people in this town for years. This has been the same problem every single year. There are many empty factories in this town. There is so many. Why don't we take some of this $250,000 that you are spreading over all of your places and put it into an empty factory? I'm sure that all 200 students and parents at St. John Paul the Great Academy would gladly do fundraising to help get sleeping bags, to get cots, to get all of this stuff so that we could have all of this. It does not need to be right behind or right next door to where our kids play. We only have the playground for our kids to play on. I was a manager at Anthony's for years, which is right across the street from there. I have seen many things. I have seen drug overdoses on the street. I've seen all kinds of stuff happen. The cops in this town are way overworked and over everything to be able to watch everything that is going on all the time. So I do believe that this should be more of a town issue than anything else. We as taxpayers pay a lot of money for this town. Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity. I'm Susan Cook. I'm chairman of the St. John Paul the Great Academy School Board. I'm representing Father Emmanuel at this point, and I would like to read just a portion of a reply that he has made over the last 72 hours. You may not know this, but I was once without a home on the streets of Argentina until a kind stranger offered me help. A train station was my home for days and nights. This experience has not only shaped my understanding, but has also fueled my advocacy for those experiencing homelessness. During the COVID crisis and over the past few years, I have opened up our churches as warming centers for the homeless brothers and sisters, demonstrating our commitment to the aid of those in need. My role as a professional counselor working with many who are homeless, I'm acutely aware of the importance of providing shelter and support. However, as someone responsible for the safety and well-being of children under our care, children who are of the age of 3 years old and up, I may also consider the implications of the shelter's location, particularly given the lack of essential safety measures. It is an important note that the decisions regarding the shelter's location is final and may not be open for negotiation. Now we know that it may be, I don't know, it may or may not be. The story was in the newspaper. Regrettably, my leadership team and I were not informed about this decision in advance. We only learned of it this past Friday. Hence the urgency and tone of my letter to our families. While this decision is beyond our control, it does not diminish our responsibility to ensure the safety of our children while embodying our Catholic values of compassion and support for the needy. I remain committed to addressing these challenges in a manner that respects our faith and upholds our responsibilities to all members of our community. Respectfully, Father Emmanuel.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Crystal Wall. I am a parent of St. John Paul the Great Academy. I am also a Torrentonian. I have been here most of my life, and very involved within the community. I would like to pose to everyone that I don't think there is a single person in this room, including all of you, that don't disagree that we have an issue. There is an issue with homelessness. There's an issue with food insecurity within this town. We as a community need to do better. We need to come together. Someone mentioned communication. The communication is not happening. We need to fill these rooms in these meetings every week like this, not to debate things, but to be here to be informed. It is a problem that is across the board. This is a problem that is going to resurface again next year, but how can we get to a point next year where we're not having this conversation? Yes, I am concerned about the location, but I am also concerned about lives that are going to be lost. I was informed today when speaking to try and educate myself a little bit more about this issue, that there have already been 2 deaths between Hartford and Litchfield County because of the cold. Yes, our homeless population are people that are families. They're single parents. We are all one paycheck, one bill, one something that's going to happen to us that could put us in homelessness. Every single person in this room. This is a humanity issue, not necessarily a homeless issue. I would love for another meeting, and I would love to be able to talk to the different entities that are involved with making changes, because Torrington needs to do better. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Ed Godin. I'm the principal at St. John Paul the Great Academy. Who would I be if I didn't spoke? Because there's 197 students at my school, and my priority is safety and security over everything. And I'm not from Torrington. I was a principal and a teacher in New Haven. I'm from Monroe, but I came to Torrington to be a principal, and I am absolutely floored by this town, by the generosity, by the professionalism, by the leadership of my board, by the passion of my parents, by the heart of my students. And from what I'm gathering here, there are a lot of professionals here who all know a lot about each and everything that they personally do. But I had no idea what one person had at a meeting. I did not know about another person meeting on behalf of a group of people to put a homeless shelter somewhere in Torrington, let alone next to our school. I'm learning a lot at this meeting, and all I'm ever asking is to allow our voices to be heard, allow my school board, who has brought this school from 87 students to 197 students. And I think if we are able to collectively come together as St. John Paul the Great Academy, Bogle, Wetmore, Northwest Hills Community Church, the leadership of the mayor and the town council, we will be able to find a place for the homeless that everybody here will be able to be on board with. And that ultimately is the goal of this school, the goal of this meeting, the goal of us to have our voices heard.
And I've never been to a town council meeting, and maybe that's partly my fault because you guys have it here and there's probably a lot that you're sharing. And I need to do better myself in communicating with my neighbors and communicating with the town, because there's a lot of good stuff that's going here. And I don't see myself, this school, our students, the Northwest Hills, the homeless going anywhere unless we all come together for the good, the common good of our students, of our schools, of the homeless, in all of the people that are collectively here. So all I ask is for us, if there is an issue, that be neighborly, and we could come together and talk and have ideas that are presented on this meeting that may not have been heard if we were not here today. So I thank you for this meeting. I thank you for our voices to be heard. And I look forward to working together as a school, as a community, and to help everybody, our students involved too. So thank you.
I see Representative Cases here. I do just want to say one thing to some of the points about communication. On November 7th, we were sharing through Facebook posts and social media and press releases that there was a call to action and a roundtable discussion about the homeless issues. And we were encouraging the public to attend that so that you could hear what was being said. So I just want to make sure that, you know, as we talk about communication, everybody gets their communication through different medium. I do want to remind people that quite frequently this communication goes out, but until it hits home for you, you may not be paying attention to what that is. But there was a roundtable and an invitation to the public to attend. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
Hello, Carol Botticelli. I am a mother of 2 young students in Torrington. I was born and raised here. My kids were born on the West Coast. They saw what happened in San Francisco with homelessness. We decided to uproot our family, come back to our small town, and put our children in school here. We know the homeless needs a shelter. My fear is the safety of our children. It is my number one concern as a parent, seeing shootings, seeing what's happened out there. Yes, there is fear, and it is our job as parents to protect them. So that's all I want to say is I just want safeguards in place for our kids. I don't know if we can get police presence, something as a peace of mind. As a parent, it is scary sending your kid to school these days. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Botticelli.
Madam Mayor, Representative Jay Case. I never thought I'd be on such an issue and such an advocate in Hartford. We're 33% raise in homelessness. It's all over the state. I do serve on the committee with the mayor. We're on meetings almost every week to talk about this issue. We've gone to many buildings. We've talked about many buildings throughout the area. We had it in Winchester last year. It's a difficult place to be. But I'll be honest with you, and the mayor and I have talked about this. I didn't know about this location until last week either, and I'm on the committee. I would like to work with the community and make sure reach out so we all are on the same page. As Father said, you know, we need to work together and find a solution. It's not a great, it's a hard population to work with, I have to say. We asked for $50 million in the budget, we got $5 million. I've been advocating since October to get this money released. I've been in the governor's office talking with them. $5 million coming out, $250,000 for the northwest corner. $250,000 is just for this particular shelter for 5.5 months. It doesn't get spread around all the other shelters in the region. Got notification at 6 o'clock tonight that money is released today. But I want to make sure when you do take state money, there are stipulations on how you run a shelter, what you do. It is low barrier. Would I like to see it in one of the other buildings that we went to? Yes. Would we have liked to seen and not be told the money's not coming to us till January? Yes. But we need to find a place. I would like to work with everybody. We are, as a committee, not meeting until December because I believe Mr. Semicelli and the Y are working with this and taking it off and moving on it. but it's all over the state. I was at a press conference last week in Hartford where the officer stood up who does homelessness. And he said last night he had identified one of his people that were out there, and they'd been homeless for 5 years. But when I go to these things, I talk about it because it's not homeless people in the streets, it's homeless people in the woods. I've gone out to the encampments and seen it. Yes, we do need to find a solution. Do I think this is the proper solution? We need to discuss this. We need to talk about it as a community, work together. Everybody has a heart. Everybody wants to do it. I've been the ranking member of Human Services in Hartford for over 8 years now. I care about the people. That's why I do this. I want to make sure everybody has a voice. And it's difficult because, you know, we bring a crowd here tonight and this is awesome. We all need to get the same information. We all need to have the information before it's put out there in the media, because everybody needs to be a part of it. And I think that's where so many people today that I've spoken to on the phone, thank you, Father, for having my email out there and sell. It was great. But it's communication. And that's what we need to do. We need to communicate. And I don't think we'd be here tonight if we had a solution that was out there, you know, in a different spot. But I'll tell you, I've been to those other spots. I've looked at them. We've talked about old factory buildings. We've talked about ones that the state actually owns, or that the state is working with in other areas with the town. It's very difficult. You gotta have bathrooms. You gotta have certain things. That's the scary thing. Up until COVID, as it was said earlier, we didn't have these issues because it was all done by volunteers. COVID dollars came in. Hartford put money into homelessness and sheltering. And now we're trying to bridge that because I don't believe this money is going to be available next year. And then it's going to be just up to volunteers. I'm open. My phone's open. My emails are open. Send me what you got. Let's just talk about it and work together.
If I may also, as I'm listening to the discussion or the suggestions that we look at these old factories, the other challenge that we have with all of that underutilized space is it's contaminated. You cannot put people in contaminated buildings. That is the challenge that we have. We have looked at every empty building. We have realtors looking at spaces. We have implored other municipalities to step up and look at what they may have to offer. This is a significant challenge for us. I would also remind this council mostly, this council agreed when we approved our ARPA spending plan that we would set aside money to do the feasibility study and funding to do implementation of consolidation of services. And that includes homeless, winter sheltering, food security, all of those things. So this is a problem. It always comes up in August and September because we can't get off this cycle of looking for a place at the last minute. The committee that has been working on this for the last 2 years has agreed that they are switching gears right now, and they are looking for a place for acquisition to bring this cycle to an end and start investing in what can be a permanent solution.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Pastor Marisol Miranda. Sorry, Carla Francesco, I got married. I'm just new to Torrington. I moved here in 2019. Lived in New Britain for over 35 years. I just found out about this meeting at 6 o'clock. The reason why I came is because before becoming a pastor, I worked at the hospital in New Britain. I used to work in the kitchen, but at nighttime, I would do work with the patients one-on-one. And a lot of times I would be with the drug addicts and the alcoholics. A lot of them will be people that will return. And a lot of times they will be high or drunk, and they will be so nice. They will be so nice, no trouble, no nothing. But then sometimes the same people will come. For some reason, they will just snap. And we will have to have security there holding them down. A nurse got kicked several times, and I couldn't even help because the guy was a lot bigger than I was. So even today, you might not believe me, I was in New Britain. I gave my coat to somebody that didn't have a coat. And I have a lot of compassion. My heart is breaking because I've seen and I've known people that have been homeless. But I honestly don't think it's a good idea to have it near where children are. Because like I said, for 3.5 years, I worked taking care with drug addicts to make sure they wouldn't get out of their rooms, they wouldn't hurt the nurses. And a lot of times they were nice, no problems, but sometimes the same people would turn. We don't know if that might happen here. I don't have children, but I love children and I have a compassion for people, you know. In my old days when I was, even before I became a Christian and a pastor, my old apartment used to be open. Teenagers, I would wake up, there would be teenagers sleeping or even some grown-ups in my living room. But I know times have changed, drugs have changed. People are reacting different. It's a scarier times, you know, and to be near children, it's not worth even just one. Something happens to just one of our children. Like I said, I don't have kids, never did, but I love children and I have a compassion for people. So I just say, I hope you guys, I want them to find a place. I even volunteer if you guys find a place. I will volunteer my time, but not, please, not near a school. Thank you.
No, I appreciate that.
Good evening. My name is Christina Emery, Executive Director of Primetime House. I want to thank you all for listening to us. I know this wasn't necessarily on the agenda, but I think it's a very important community conversation. What we do at Primetime House is provide a place for those with a serious mental illness to come together. I work there every day. I am never afraid of the people we support at all. I also want to say that we're part of a continuum of care. Wherever the overflow is this year, it will be staffed by professionals. The YMCA has experience with homeless shelters. They have experience with long-term supportive housing, and they ran the overflow last year. We've all learned from last year. We've learned that having a location far from the center of services is difficult. People can't get there. This year, they looked at places in surrounding towns and it wasn't going to work logistically. There is no transportation. Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, Torrington is the hub. This is where people are. One of the things we do in addition to our clubhouse, which is a social program, is we provide housing case management. We know there's a need. There aren't enough shelter beds at Fish and the Y locally. There is an influx of elderly living in their cars. There is an influx of families with children in their cars. People are here struggling, and what we're trying to do is keep them alive until we can get them connected to a housing voucher, get them a long-term shelter, and get them supports they needed so that they don't cycle in and out of homelessness. Putting everybody in an empty building without the services is not going to solve the problem. They need the support in addition to a roof over their heads. So thank you.
Thank you, Christina. I know that there's a lot of passion and information that people want to share and want to hear, but it is now approaching 8 o'clock and the council does have, this is a working meeting. There is work to be done. So I would just like to suggest that we leave the public portion open until 8 o'clock, if the council is comfortable with that. But encourage anybody that is speaking, if you're repeating something that's already been said, maybe just take a couple of seconds to support it and we can get more people to the microphone. Thank you.
My name is Lisa Candles. I've worked in Torrington for 11 years for, used to be Education Connection. Now it's called Ed Advance in the Parents as Teachers program. We register pregnant women into the program and then we work with them for 5 years. Many of our families are homeless or doubled up in housing, which is also considered homeless. The person, in fact, most likely to be homeless in the United States is a person under the age of 1. The second person most likely to be homeless is a person under the age of 5. I worked in Hartford for 26 years at a program that started at Immaculate Conception Church on Park Street in Hartford, one of the poorest neighborhoods in Hartford. A man died between the rectory and the church. And the priest there at the time went to the parish and he said, "This can't happen anymore." And they said, "This can't happen anymore." And they gave up their parish hall every October until every April that had their only kitchen, it was their only parish hall they had. And they gave it up to house the homeless men who were ejected and rejected from every other shelter. Because they were a wet shelter and they still are. This is how we teach our children what Jesus taught us. This is exactly how we do it. This shelter has been in this church for 16 years. Nothing happened. I went and visited because I would go and do the homeless counts. Nothing happened to the children. There are children also at the Y in the shelter and in the childcare. There are children at Kids Play. There are children at Vogel Wetmore. This is not the danger that you think it is. And anything that would stop this shelter from being opened as soon as possible is much more of a danger. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Mary Fisher. I worked with Operation Overflow. Operation Overflow was the one before COVID. We were all volunteers when we started the program. We are all contribution. We survived by contributions. We being a whatever little group, we couldn't stay at a church longer than 1 month. So we had to pack all of the cots, the mattresses, and all of the bedding and our coffee supplies and everything and move to another church. We were every year, several months, a month in between at another church. We were at, and I'm sorry, I still call it Calvary Baptist, forgive me. But as a volunteer, we'd have 2 volunteers, a male and female at night, unless we had, if we had 18, up to 18, we needed a 3rd volunteer, over 12. But 18 was our limit because we were all volunteers and it's kind of hard to get 3 volunteers every night. But we would wand each individual, and when we opened up the doors, and they'd have the breathalyzer. If they did blow numbers, we'd give them time to sober up, but they were successful most of the time. We hardly ever had in 16 years, didn't have very many issues. Volunteering, seeing them come in, they'd go and get their bedding. At some of the churches, we had to put the cots up each night and put our mattress on the cot and then make our bed. So the folks would come in, they'd pack up all of their belongings that they had with them, plop it on an area of the floor, get their cot, their mattress, put their bed together, take off their wet socks and shoes, and we would provide them with more socks if they need that. But they just want to quickly get to bed. And so often, so many people would be snoring, volunteers and guests.
I apologize. I am sorry. We have a 3-minute limit.
Okay. Sorry. So and when we first started this program, we thought a volunteer should stay awake. No way. No one has to stay awake. We all sleep all night long, except for, the trips to the bathroom. But it's a great, it was a great experience. And hopefully the gentlemen and women and children that get to come to this overflow this year get in there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Deirdre DeCara, Executive Director at FISH, Friends in Service to Humanity of Northwestern Connecticut, where we have a 35-bed homeless shelter serving our Northwestern Connecticut community. Currently, we have 8 children living with us. They're 4 families. We have 5 veterans, and the rest are individual people who all deserve a roof over their head and dream of having their own apartment. And through all of the wonderful social agencies that we work with and our own case manager, the number one goal is getting a housing voucher and getting your own apartment. And we've been extremely challenged because people receive those vouchers, yet there's not affordable housing to move into. I will share that last year at the overflow held in Winstead, 75% of those people entering that were homeless on the streets and in the woods, 75% left with a housing plan. It's a tremendous record. And that's because all of these social service agencies worked along with the YMCA who ran the program. So we have worked on this since last June, looking for a place and waiting for the funding. We ran rallies. We ran 2 rallies last year looking for Bill 6554, which was to fund, piece of it was to fund homeless shelters throughout the state for the cold weather program, the overflows. So I can only pray before there are more deaths due to the cold that we find a place to put our folks for the winter. Thank you.
Thank you, Deirdre.
I'll be quick. I'm Megan Babol. I'm a resident of Torrington. My son does go to school at St. John Paul the Great. I just think it's important to remember that as a parent in the United States, we have an underlying fear of sending our children to school each day. That's the fact. I am a parent and a teacher, and when the calendar turns to December each year, I can't help but think of the Sandy Hook community right down the road. It is unfortunately a natural response to have a heightened awareness of the dangers to our children around us. So I think tonight's meeting is an example of the need for communication to help us with those fears as we send our kids off to school each day. We didn't know a lot of the information that was shared tonight, so I do feel better about a lot of what was shared, but I think it's just important to know where we're coming from as a group of parents. We don't know what's going to happen each day, unfortunately, in our country. So thank you.
Thank you, Megan. All right, I have 7:59. I'd hoped we could close this out at 8 o'clock. Final call, anybody else that feels compelled to add anything? All right. I greatly appreciate that you all came out here to listen to what is being offered, to voice your concerns. I also share concerns. Location is key to the success of this program, but it's also key to the success of our schools. We have worked diligently trying to find another location. I was not aware that this location existed until Thursday of last week. And my first charge to the committee was, who is going to communicate this information to the schools? So I do want you to know that while these decisions, conversations that take place over 8, 9, 12 weeks, boil down to a last minute volunteer or somebody that steps up, and it literally happens that quickly. So from Thursday, when I was made aware of where the location was going to be, to Sunday evening or Saturday evening, when my phone started blowing up with messages of concern, the first thing I said is, let's open this up, bring everybody in, voice your concerns. Again, this board has no jurisdiction over the decision, but I did not want to stop any of you from having an opportunity to say what you need to say and hear what you need to hear. So I greatly appreciate it. As I said before we started the meeting, there is a zoning process that must occur. I did send the link for the application to John Simoncelli. I'm not sure where that application is, but the process would be the application gets filed with the zoning commission. Zoning commission establishes another public hearing. At that public hearing, the public will have an opportunity to once again voice their concerns or their suggestions. And the commission will make a determination based on what is best for the community. So with that said, I again thank you all. And dare I say, I wish you all a happy Thanksgiving.
Welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting.
Yeah.
Reason why this wasn't a good meeting? It's not filed. Never come to this. I didn't know about this until yesterday. Yep. Yeah, that's good to see. He's involved in the article. Oh, she may be on, well, yeah, she would have been involved in the.
All right. I know that it is getting late and this board does have some business to attend. So I'd like to move the meeting if I may. And thank you. All right. If I may move into item number 2, I do need a motion from the board to accept the regular meeting minutes from November 13th, 2023.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilwoman Ruette, seconded by Councilman Oliver. Questions or comments on the minutes? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, I will entertain a motion to appoint Denise Gagne Karpowski to the position of the HR Director for the City of Torrington.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
I think you missed.
Thank you. The motion was made by Councilman Menichia, seconded by Councilman Oliver. All right, questions or comments on this appointment? I would only add that she is scheduled to begin on December 1st.
I was just kind of curious. She has a lot of education background.
She does.
Does she-
Yeah.
What made her want to switch to city side stuff?
She So she did have municipal experience as well. Yeah, she's great. I think that experience just deepens the bench for us. She is very excited to begin work with us. So. And I do like the fact that she has a lot of business director. Other questions or comments? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 5. I will entertain a motion to approve an additional $100,000 of grant funding from the American Rescue Plan funds to help fund the Warner Theaters initiatives as disclosed in the memo and document provided by the Warner Theater.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Oliver,
Second.
seconded by Councilman Waldron. Are there questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, I need a motion to add section B to the agenda. And this, of course, has to be done by 2/3 of a vote. The purpose of this section B is to discuss the consulting services contract with Juliet Berdowski for Economic Development Grant Administration Training. So do I have a motion to add this to the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Waldron,
Second.
seconded by Councilwoman Ruette. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, so the motion I'm looking for is a vote to authorize the mayor to enter into a consulting service contract with Juliet Berdowski for Economic Development Grant Administration Training. Her services will begin December 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024. This is approximately based on the estimated number of hours that she's anticipating necessary to provide the training, and technical assistance would be about $14,000 as described in Ms. Berdowski's proposal dated November 15th, 2023. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Waldron.
Second.
A second by Councilman Oliver. Questions? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 6, I'll entertain a motion to accept the recommendation of the tax collector and authorize the tax refunds indicated in list dated November 20th, 2023.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Waldron.
Second.
Second by Councilman Oliver. Questions on the motion or on the list? Hearing none, I'll entertain, I'll call the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 7, I'll entertain a motion to consider business by department heads.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Waldron.
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Hona. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have city treasurer in the audience. Nothing, anything from the city clerk's office? All right. I see Deputy Chief Tripp is on the call. Is there anything from the fire department you wish to add?
I have nothing, Mayor, from Florida. I see the chief warden's on too.
Thank you. And I see Deputy Chief of the Police Department, Barone, is on the call. Anything from the Police Department this evening?
Nothing, Mayor. I'm all
Thank
set.
you. All right. Then let's move into item number 8. I'll entertain a motion to consider business by mayor and members.
So moved.
Thank you. I heard Councilman Hona and second by Councilman Oliver. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Starting on my left, anything this evening, Councilman Oliver,
No, Mayor, thank you.
Councilman Cavanero.
Just, could you speak to the follow-up to this,
Yes,
whatever kind of
yes,
meeting?
absolutely.
Thank you.
So as you heard, Julie Scharnberg from the Community Foundation was sharing my office, both my secretary Maurette and myself tag team into these weekly meetings with this group of social care providers. It's Fish, it's the Gathering Place, McCall Foundation, trying to think of all of the various agencies that are on these calls. And the purpose of the calls is to identify a location where winter sheltering can be stood up. This year was challenging because while we started meeting early enough in August, the funding was not guaranteed. In fact, the funding had been stalled at the state level. So a lot of conversations, a couple of new players at the table that were interested in moving into the community, buying property, turning that property into a homeless shelter. That was a conversation that was going on. So on a weekly basis, we would be updated on that. That acquisition fell through. Those people faded into the sunset. And up until last Thursday, there was no viable location for winter sheltering.
Okay.
The announcement that the Northwest Hills Church was stepping up and offering its location was announced at that meeting. I immediately reminded them that this is a church that is located across the street from Vogel Whitmore School. It is located right next door to the academy, the St. John Paul the Great Academy. And I felt that it was incumbent upon the lead agency to contact the schools and commence the communication. That was on Thursday. On Friday, I had a phone call from Father Emmanuel. I shared with him who the lead agent was, encouraged the conversation. I provided contact information for the principal of the school. I believe there was a phone call that was made to the school. Saturday evening is when my phone started blowing up because the parishioners of the church had been advised that this was happening and that they had been excluded from the conversation. So understandably, they were upset. Understandably. So I spent the better part of the late afternoon and early evening of Saturday and a good portion of Sunday morning reaching out to the stakeholders. I spoke with Father Emmanuel. I spoke with John Simoncelli. I spoke with the pastors of the Northwest Hills Church. And today in the office is when I learned from our planning, because again, this was in the newspaper. It's not even, it's Thursday is when we are informed it's going to happen. Saturday, it's in the newspaper. It's a done deal. And that's when a few of the planning and zoning commissioners picked up and said, hold on a moment. That's a change of use that hasn't come before our board. So this morning when I'm in my office is when the city planner said they've skipped a part of the process and we have to backtrack and we have to afford this public an opportunity to have some input on the location.
I'm sure you've been thinking along the same lines. I'm not sure you're coming to the same conclusion I am, but it just seems to me, Torrington has evolved to the point as a distressed community and the leading distressed community in Northwest Connecticut that, I mean, we're at a point now where we clearly need, if this did anything tonight, it highlighted the absolute necessity for a more coherent, centralized sort of agency to coordinate all these various kind of social services. This was mind-bogglingly, I mean, the fact that we're into the winter already and everybody knew winter is coming. You didn't have to watch Game of Thrones to know that. And yet it took this long for apparently Hartford to move to get the money to begin the process. This whole thing is so cockamamie, so ridiculously overwrought and understaffed that we need, as a city mayor and as a city councilman, okay, I'm appalled by what happened here tonight, by just everybody cross-talking over anybody else about what is an absolute necessary and immediate problem that we are totally and wholly almost incapable of resolving in a coherent way, just because of how this thing has morphed over the years into this much bigger problem. So having said that, I would love, me personally, I don't know what the rest of the council, I would at least like at the next council meeting to have an agenda item for us to discuss internally what we think are the next best steps going forward for a process. I mean, do we need a dedicated agency from the state to monitor this? Do we need regular reporting from a certain agency at the state so that we don't, every winter, we don't find ourselves with this problem? And
I'm
an agenda item. The public showed up to talk about it, and we can't even discuss it with them. You know, by the nature of how this is just sort of blown up. So
yeah.
Again, the recommendation, comments for the good of the other. We all want to go home. I know it's a great football game about to start. So, well, it's very, very important.
And I will remind you to that point, during the pandemic, we recognized this was a problem, and that's why we earmarked money to get the social service agencies together, to talk together, to decide how are they going to coordinate, consolidate, co-locate.
But even to that, Mayor, I mean, it's like from tonight's conversation, if I understand correctly, it's not really a city council
It
issue. It's
isn't.
not really a mayor issue, but it might become a planning and zoning. That question alone, I think, should trigger just us elected officials to sit down and say, "Look, how are we gonna go about getting a handle on this
I hear you.
unwieldy, very unwieldy process?"
Absolutely,
Because
absolutely.
people are freezing to death. So.
The, I just, so this council also is aware, and I agree with, it's getting late. When you hear that the very volunteers and agencies that worked very hard for the 16 years prior to the pandemic, it was volunteer, it was in the churches, and they had control.
But
They could establish barriers. Once the state started throwing money at this, last year it was $500,000, Paul. $500,000 spent on winter sheltering from December 1st to March 31st. And what happens is, as soon as that money is offered, this sheltering changes. Now what happens is, you could be in New London, call 211 and say, I need a place to sleep tonight. They will put you in a taxi and have you driven to Torrington. So our homeless population has exploded. It's exploded. So when we put this money in the ARPA funding, that was a problem we were identifying, is all of a sudden, when you heard one volunteer say 18 people were in their shelter when it was volunteer and project overflow, to now it's 40 people. It's 40 people because people are being placed from other cities. And then when they get placed here, we're a nice community. We're very generous. There's good food. There's safety. And they decide to stay here. So our population, our homeless population has exploded because of this. And our schools will be the first one to say that. I don't mean to call John Kisco out, but I had a conversation with the superintendent and he said their homeless student population doubled. That's a problem. I agree with you 100%.
But let's at least map out the parameters of the problem.
Absolutely.
Certainly not going to solve it in a meeting, but at least
Right.
let's start to get our heads around it and then work on solutions. I mean, and find possible, immediate locations.
A permanent solution. And there was, this council did approve a resolution to support a grant in the last CIF 2030 funding that intended to provide winter sheltering. That grant went to the state, it was denied. So there are people that are trying to address this on a daily basis. They're trying to address this. That grant was filed in June and it was denied. It is crazy. You're right.
In Winston, Mayor, and this this is the agenda item, I know, but I mean, just my last thought, just as a suggestion, I don't know why because people were bringing it up tonight about using some of our old industrial buildings for that.
Yes.
In Winston, there's at least 2 buildings that are used for there's the Whiting building,
Mills.
and then there's one down Main Street, which is again a lot of loft. So it's inhabitable. It must be zoned for people work there, and I don't know if they live there, but they certainly work there. Do they have space there, and do we have that kind of?
I
Don't know.
I do know. We have looked at places in Winston. I've encouraged Winston, Norfolk, Goshen. Our COG offices abandoned their office in Goshen and moved to Litchfield. I said, what about that space? That space is open and empty right now. The challenge that keeps coming up as I continue to press for other municipalities to step up and help us address this problem is the transportation issue. And transporting the homeless population from Winston to Torrington every morning last year, I can't even begin to tell you the challenges that created.
Well,
Bus drivers were assaulted. We had a bus driver that was assaulted and concussion and stitches. So, this is, and I know that everybody wants to think about the, focus on those families and the children, and the over 65 population, which is also a growing homeless population. permanent solution means being able to provide diverse offerings. You know, a 70-year-old homeless woman doesn't want to be in the same room as somebody who, because it's a low barrier, may be under the influence. It's such a huge problem all around that what we heard today is problematic, but this is just the tip of the iceberg
Sure it is.
to the problem.
Sure it is. So again, just to I know
Move it
sure
along.
we can move on.
Absolutely.
It's just let's get ahead of this for immediate problem this year, but then looking forward to next year
I
and
agree.
doing what we need to do to push people in Hartford, you know, to get off their keisters and get some stuff done to make this more manageable. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Councilwoman Ruette.
I have a lot to say, but I think this was actually a good public hearing, even though it wasn't anything that we were going to be talking tonight on our agenda. That homelessness has been around for a long time. And I think, you know, in our community, we have, and I love the fact that one of the members of the public had indicated we have been a very open community to a number of social services agencies who collaboratively have been working together on the homelessness issue and have done a yeoman's job. It's the location that it's shocking to me that you know, we have so many laws in place about, you know, people smoking a certain distance from schools or, you know, marijuana, whatever it is. I mean, and here we are putting a homeless shelter adjacent to a school and across from a public school. So I don't know if we're going to be able to have a forum. I feel like as a city council, we're a governance that, you know, we should rely on the community to do what they can. And, you know, to the mayor's point, we have had participation in those conversations through her office. So I'm not sure, you know, what the discussion would be, but either way, the passion.
Recommendations for the city of Torrington via the city council and planning and zoning to interface with some group that's going to then coordinate efforts on the other side. And, you know, basically my thinking is bring them in and say, you need to come. When we had the debate at primetime, I know you were there, and one of my recommendations to the people at primetime was that you can't, this is not the proper way to address the city council through these kinds of debate. I said, you know your problems, you know your issues, you know that you need to figure out a way to simply come to the mayor's office and request that, you know, they have a voice, you know, an issue to be raised by the city council that is appropriate for the city council. And then you bring the facts, you bring the information, the scale and scope of the problem. We have to be able to, you have to manage the problem that you know and are aware of and present it to us in a way, the city council, to act on it. I said, it can't be just these.
So I respect what you're saying, but I'm again going to remind everybody that there was a call to action. This information was shared with everybody, and it was put out on social media, and it was put in the newspapers that there was a public forum for people to attend. It's here. It was put on my Facebook page. It was shared with the newspapers, and nobody went to this thing. Deidre came up to me after this meeting and said she appreciated the shout out because they did offer this as a forum for the public to be informed, and nobody showed up except the social service agencies. So there's a certain amount of, I agree with you, there's a certain amount of come to us, but there also has to be an equal amount of go to them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I agree.
All right.
So
Completely.
I won't ask any more questions, but I do think that I wanted to take one more opportunity because I know this is the last meeting to acknowledge the two council members.
And it was such a nice crowd to show up.
They did it just for your behalf.
There were
but-
balloons and cake and they must.
Must have taken it out with them, yeah.
But to both of you, it's been an honor to serve with you. And have dialogue and I think do the best we can as public servants. And you have done that. So thank you for serving. Thanks. And good luck on your new venture, whatever it might be.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm not going to talk long because I don't want to hold up everybody going home because it's already almost 8:30. But thank you. It was a pleasure serving on the city council with everybody. I am going to miss it, but unfortunately, I have to step away for a little bit.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hona.
I do just have a couple of questions regarding the planning and zoning for
Yes.
for this. So why did we not need them when the churches were being used in the last, 16 years or?
So from what I understand, and I did ask Jeremy Leifer is the city planner. I did ask him that question. I said, was there at some point 16 years ago that this was approved? The way I understood these worked is the churches rotated. So they were never more than, a short period of time. Once you make this commitment that it's a 6-month period of time, it changes the use of your building. So what was considered a religious organization with an expected number of hours changes to overnight services, overnight sheltering. It changed everything. So I believe the reason is in the past, it was never more than 30 days. And I want to say, although I'm sure the zoning commission will have a further discussion about this, I want to say that it wasn't 7 nights a week. I want to say it was when bad weather was being predicted.
I remember a few years back it being
7 days?
nights a week.
Was it
at
7
least.
nights a week?
Yeah, I mean, when it was, I think
Did
so,
you-
yeah.
yeah.
Over 10 years ago. I mean, but I think it was only at a month at a time. So that's
It
what I was
was.
wondering, like, this is 4 months, I think we're talking about, right? December, January, February?
No, I think it's 5 or 6. Yeah.
Okay.
5.5 is what they said.
So given that, I guess we have to go to zoning. How are we, I mean, it's really cold. Like how quickly are they going to be able to do this?
So zoning commission meets on the 29th. The application will be presented to them. Public hearing must be held, 10 days notice for a public hearing. The next meeting, regular meeting of the zoning commission is December 13th. And I do believe that they can make their decision on that date.
There's nothing that can be done until then. I mean, I wonder if there's something that can be done. If they were allowed to do it for a month at a time before, can they do it for a month at a time now before
That's-
a permanent decision is made?
Certainly something to discuss. I can certainly reach out to, I think it could not be this church, but if one of the other churches could step up and offer that 30 days.
Why did the churches stop doing it?
Low barrier. Once those barriers were removed and they could no longer say no to somebody who was under the influence, carrying drugs, had a criminal record, particularly if it was a violent crime against children or women.
So
When those faded away, when the state money comes, those barriers also disappear.
My only experience is Trinity. And when I just was discussing it, because I got some calls today too, it wasn't that, it was that they can't fit everybody. Like, because used to be 18 and they don't have the space.
So it was 18 right up until 2020. As soon as the state started funding this and the 211 system was implemented, now the placements changed. Now we were not just serving Torrington. And when I say Torrington, I mean the Torrington area, obviously somebody in Winston, the northwest corner. As soon as that 211 system was activated and these beds are advertised through the 211 system, it did burgeon.
I just wanted to make the point that they didn't mention anything about the barrier issue. It was more about the fact they couldn't accommodate.
I think if you wanted to speak with somebody who had that personal experience about that, you could probably go to the library and talk to anybody down there.
Okay. Is there a certain distance from like, why would you say that it would be that that this school couldn't be done for a month versus this church? I mean, Trinity's, I don't know, a few hundred yards further down the road. Like, is there a distance that would be?
I don't
Maybe
know
it's-
that
sorry.
I'm not sure that, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It's the comfort level of the public. You know, what is the public expecting for an expectation of feeling safe? So again, you know, if it's a shorter period of time, it's, you know, only overnight, you know, does the public feel differently about that? I don't know. I'm not sure. And that's why zoning commissions have public hearings, so they can hear that.
Okay, I guess that's all I have.
Yeah, sure. Councilman Waldron.
Oh. Excuse me. Well, once again, Armin, Carrie, it's great having you with us, and good luck in your next endeavors. Maybe we'll see you again here in the future, and happy Thanksgiving to everybody. You know, a big week here, so that's it.
So I'm just going to add my sentiments and acknowledge or express my gratitude. This isn't always an easy job. You know, it might seem glamorous from the seats out there or from people that are reading in the newspaper what decisions are being made. I know that this job comes with a level of responsibility to the taxpayers, responsibility to the voters, responsibility to the people that live that don't have a voice. And I am so incredibly grateful that both Councilman Minichia and Councilwoman Hona did an incredible job of representing all of those population, and proud of the work that we've done over the last 2 years. I know you're not going anywhere. I look forward to the work we can do in the coming years, and I wish you all the best and a happy Thanksgiving. All right, so there are still 2 more agenda items we have to get through. Item 9, I will entertain a motion to open the meeting back to the public to comment on the agenda items only.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hona, seconded by Councilman Cavanero. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? To the public? I know I said agenda items, or is there?
Good evening, all. My name is Alan Rosa. I was born in this town and
Oh, Mr. Rosa, I'm sorry. Is this an agenda item? It must be an agenda
there
item.
must be an agenda item, so you're denying me public comment in person only. Just on the agenda? Is that what it means, Mayor Carbone? You have blocked access to your office from me, or you are well aware of that.
That is, okay. I'm
Uh,
not going to argue with the lawyer. I think he's caught me on a technicality. It is an agenda item. You have 3 minutes.
This may take longer than 3 minutes, so can I have?
Those are the rules.
Those are the
Sorry.
rules?
Yeah.
It seemed to me in the beginning of these presentations, there were many people that spoke beyond 3 minutes, and I'm glad they did, because I learned a lot from that. So if you're going to restrict me to 3 minutes,
I restricted them to 3 minutes. I called many of them out for 3 minutes.
it seemed to me there was longer than 3, but okay. I don't even know where to begin over here. I was born in this town and raised in this town. I spent all my education in this town. My father was born in this town. His name is on that memorial wall. He served in World War II. My mother and father have their final resting place here. I have a home in Torrington. I'm not sure that you want to keep me in that home, Mayor Carbone. Let me say, last year, I told you I had neuropathy in my feet. It's a very painful condition, and it's gotten worse. There are days when I cannot stand on my feet, literally. If I walk around, I can walk around for 20 minutes or so, then I have to sit down. Okay. I went to Florida. You knew I was in Florida. While I was in Florida, you sued me. I did not receive any notice whatsoever. When I came back in the spring, I saw a foreclosure sign on my house. I was fined. I paid nearly $100,000 to keep my home. That is, I've been lied through and misled by so many people in government through this process. Okay, I was told that $100,000, it took me nearly 10 to 12 years to save that up. I literally ate beans and rice every night, and I still do. You have taken away that money when you could have solved the problem in a much easier way. I was told by people in the Planning and Zoning Commission that first of all, if I wanted their help, they would help me. I said, no, let me take care of it my own way. And then they said, if you don't, what we're going to do is we're going to come in there and we're going to do what we have to do. You did not do that. You engaged in a destructive process, nearly $100,000. You do not have no idea how much that meant to me. You have unquestionably shortened my lifespan. Okay. Now you want to fine me $1,000 a day. I've received notice that they're going to fine me $1,000 a day. This is clearly you're trying to dispossess me from the community. You know, it takes so long to save up money to buy a house, and you got to struggle through the winter and everything else. I've been a teacher for 20 years. I live most of my life in this town over here. I can't get honest answers from you. I can't get honest answers from the rest of some of these administrators in office. It's just disgraceful. Now I know you want to dispossess me. There's like no doubt about that. Why won't you let me speak to you in your office, Mayor Carbone?
You are welcome to my office anytime, Mr. Rosa. I have not restricted you from my office.
Excuse me, what was the last part?
I have never restricted you from my office.
We
are representing.
Someone is lying to me, okay? Because your secretary here told me tonight you would not see me.
If this
Mayor Carbone, you know, I don't have any faith in politicians whatsoever. And that goes on both sides, okay? And I have little faith in the court system now. It's so politicized. So many politicians are so dishonest and they're so good at it. Just incredibly good at it. Okay. You are being dishonest. You are lying to me now. What I'm asking for is an open investigation into the tactics employed by Mayor Carbone and other people. Okay. I want to know what, you had people stand up here and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Was that just an empty gesture on your part? Truth and justice for all?
All right. I'm sorry. You're 3 minutes.
Mayor Carbone, will you meet me tomorrow? When will you meet me?
I will meet with you when I have an attorney present. If you are calling and meeting with me to discuss the lawsuit,
yes,
I must have the city's attorney present.
Okay. But you will admit to me that you refused me before.
I told you that I will meet with you with the attorney present.
No, that's not
Yes.
true. You told me the only way.
All right. I'm sorry. Your 3 minutes is up.
Okay. No.
You
Mayor
certainly
Carbone,
can call.
All I can say is I wish these people all here knew you as I know you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Rosa. Anybody else from the public wishing to address the board? Seeing and hearing none, there being no further business before the board, do I have a motion to adjourn? Wait. Oh, darn it. So moved. Thank you. And
Second. My bad.
I have a motion by Councilwoman Hona, a second by Councilwoman Menichia. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We're adjourned.
I didn't even realize. Thank you guys for your service.
Well, that.